I found out yesterday that my parents secretly gave my inheritance to my older sister, and that was the breaking point in a lifetime of being treated as second best. As the spare child to my parents' obvious golden girl, I've grown up knowing my place in the family pecking order. But even I never expected them to stoop this low. I'm furious, I'm hurt, and I'm questioning if I even have a family at all anymore. My sister Melanie is 2 years older than me and has been the center of my parents' universe from the moment she was born. Growing up, no matter what I did, Melanie always shined brighter in their eyes. If I got a B+ on a test and she got a C, Mom would console her for trying her best and barely acknowledge my above-average grade. If I won second place in a school art contest and Melanie didn't place in her competition, Dad would say, "Don't feel bad. Mel, you'll win next time," and then later caution me not to brag about my ribbon so Melanie wouldn't feel bad. Our family photo albums are basically a shrine to Melanie's childhood, page after page of her recitals, her graduations, her achievements. I'm in them too, but more like a background character or a prop. There are endless examples. For my 10th birthday, I got a small store-bought cake at a quiet family dinner. 3 months later, Melanie turned 13, and they threw her an extravagant skating rink party with the whole class invited and a 3-tier cake. When I asked why she got such a big celebration, Mom said, 13 is a much more important birthday, honey. Another time, my parents basically made me do Melanie's science fair project with her, which in practice meant doing it for her, because she was struggling and, "You're so good at that stuff, sweetie, and your sister needs your help." She ended up winning second place with her project. I didn't even enter that year because I'd spent all my free time fixing hers. It wasn't just affection, it was resources too. At 16, I desperately wanted to learn guitar. My parents said they couldn't afford lessons or a guitar, so I got a part-time job and saved up for a beat-up secondhand guitar on my own. A couple months later, Melanie casually mused about wanting to try violin. Guess who got a brand new $1,200 violin and professional lessons handed to her? Yep. Watching her squeal with joy while I strummed my scuffed thrift store guitar was basically a snapshot of our lives. Perhaps the worst, until now, was when I was 18 and applying for college. My maternal grandfather, who passed away when I was little, had left a modest college fund for me. Not huge, but enough for a couple years at a state school. I was counting on it. It was my ticket to affording college without drowning in loans. By that time, Melanie was in her second year at an expensive private university, heavily funded by my parents. I applied and got into a solid public university. When I excitedly mentioned my acceptance and said, "Grandpa's fund will really help," my parents looked at each other and then told me the fund was gone. They had spent it to cover part of Melanie's freshman year tuition because she needed it more. I'll never forget that conversation. Mom said it in a tone that suggested it was the most logical thing ever. Like, "Of course we spent your college fund on your sister." Dad at least had the decency to look uncomfortable as I sat there stunned. When I found my voice to ask why, they got defensive. They said we're a family and the child with the greater need should get the resources. I had less need since I'd gotten a partial scholarship to my school and could take out loans for the rest. Melanie had a chance at her dream school. So how could they not help her achieve that? I walked away from that discussion numb. Ultimately, I did go to college by taking out loans, working part-time, and scraping by on scholarships. I graduated with debt, whereas Melanie got her degree debt-free, courtesy of my college fund plus my parents covering the rest. For a long time after, I barely spoke to my parents. They tried to pretend it was normal, saying things like, "You're so independent, we knew you could handle it." It took a lot of therapy at my university's free counseling center to even partially mend my relationship with them. And by mend, I mean I swallowed my resentment, kept a polite distance, and let go of expecting any sort of fairness. I thought I'd made my peace with being perpetually second. Fast forward to now. I'm 24, working a stable job in software development. Melanie is 26, married with a 2-year-old son, and living in a house, which, of course, my parents helped her buy. Despite her having a husband with a decent job, my parents still send money her way regularly, supposedly for my nephew's needs, but it keeps their princess living in the style she's accustomed to. I mostly keep out of it. I see my family at occasional dinners or holidays and try not to get sucked into comparisons. It's easier now that I'm financially independent and not under their roof, but the dynamic is still there. Melanie whines about how expensive everything is with a child and a mortgage, and my parents open their wallet on the spot. Meanwhile, if I mention anything about my life, the subject changes quickly back to her. It is what it is. 6 months ago, my paternal grandmother, Grandma Evelyn, passed away. I was heartbroken. I loved her dearly. She was one of the few people who really saw me. She'd often slip me candy as a kid and whisper, "Don't tell your sister," with a wink, little things to make me feel special. After the college fund fiasco, I suspect my aunt, Dad's sister, told Grandma what happened because Grandma Evelyn sat me down one day and, blunt as always, said, "What your parents did was wrong. I'm proud of you for going to college on your own, and I won't forget what happened." I didn't fully understand what she meant until the reading of her will. Grandma left me a significant portion of her estate. Specifically, she left me her house, a modest 3-bedroom ranch, and about $30,000. She left an equal $30,000 to Melanie. So, no, I wasn't the only beneficiary, but the house, by far the biggest asset, was 100% willed to me. In the will, she explicitly stated that she wanted me to have a stable home, either to live in or sell for funds, to make things more equal between my grandchildren. She knew. She was trying to right, in some way, the imbalance that she'd witnessed. My parents are the executors of Grandma's estate. At the will reading a couple months ago, I was shocked and emotional at Grandma's generosity. My parents, however, looked like they'd sucked on a lemon. My sister, well, Melanie looked pissed. I think she assumed she'd get Grandma's house. She'd made comments before about how Grandma's place was bigger than hers, and it'd be nice if one day she could have it. But the will couldn't have been clearer. I remember Dad clearing his throat and saying, "We'll have to figure out the best way to handle the house." Grandma's lawyer gave him a sharp look and said plainly that the house was left to me and he'd help guide the transfer process. That was that. Or so I thought. In the weeks after, whenever I asked my parents when we'd move forward with transferring the deed or sorting the estate, I got the runaround. "Oh, there's a lot of legal paperwork. Just be patient," Dad would say. Or Mom would say, "We'll discuss the house soon. We're just sorting out a few details." It felt odd they were stalling, but I didn't know why. I mean, I had my suspicions. They weren't happy about the situation. Maybe they hoped I'd agree to something different, but I foolishly hoped they'd respect Grandma's wishes. Little hints of betrayal started piling up, though. My cousin, Aunt's daughter, mentioned in passing that my parents and Melanie had been having a lot of closed-door discussions. My cousin helps babysit my nephew sometimes, and she overheard Melanie on a phone call say, "I don't care what the will said. My name. Doesn't need that house. He's single and only 24. What does he need a 3-bedroom for? It should stay with the family." When my cousin asked my mom about it later, in a casual, "Oh, is something going on with Grandma's house?" way, my mom apparently clammed up and said, "Nothing's decided. We're just figuring out what's best for everyone." Red flag. That phrase dash, "what's best for everyone," set off alarms in my head. In my family, what's best for everyone has always meant give to Melanie what she wants. I confronted my parents, asking if they were planning to not honor Grandma's will. They insisted I was jumping to conclusions and that, of course, we'll follow her wishes. So I let it drop, but not without telling them I'd be very upset if they didn't. Yesterday, my worst fears were confirmed. I got a call from a realtor friend. She helped me find my current apartment and also knew my grandma. She sounded confused. "Hey, random question. Did you decide to sell your grandma's house already? I saw it listed today under your sister's name as the owner, and I just wanted to make sure you weren't hacked or something." I nearly dropped my phone. I told her, absolutely not. I had no clue what she was talking about. She gave me the MLS number. I pulled it up on my laptop. Sure enough, there was Grandma's house listed for sale, with Melanie and her husband listed as the sellers. There were even interior photos taken recently, with all of Grandma's furniture still in place. They hadn't even cleared it out. The listing date was 2 days ago. I saw red. I immediately tried calling my parents, no answer. I later found out they went on a weekend getaway, likely to avoid my reaction. Then I called Melanie. To my surprise, she picked up, all chipper. "Hi, little brother." She only calls me little brother when she's trying to be cutesy or, I suspect, when she's feeling guilty. I cut right to the chase. "Why is Grandma's house listed for sale under your name?" My voice was shaking with anger. There was a pause, then the fakest surprised tone. "Oh, Mom and Dad said we should keep the house in our family unit since we have the bigger family. They figured it'd be easier if I took the house and you got the equivalent in cash. They were going to explain it to you. I guess you found out before they had a chance." I was speechless for a second, then I went off. I said I never agreed to that. It wasn't their call to make, and she had no right. She got defensive, dropping the sweet tone. She said I would be taken care of. Mom and Dad planned to give me money from the sale equal to the house's value, so I wouldn't be losing out. She claimed they genuinely thought this was a good solution. I get cash, which is easier for you, since you're renting and don't need a house right now. And she keeps the house in the family. I asked whose idea this was. She said some nonsense about how we all talked and realized you wouldn't want to deal with a property and we need a bigger place, so it just made sense. I was livid. I told her nothing about this makes sense to me, and it was a blatant violation of Grandma's will and my rights. She started getting annoyed, painting it as if I was being ungrateful and stubborn. You're single with a good job, you can buy a house later. I have a family to think about. Why can't you just be okay with this? It's not like you're being left with nothing. Dad said he'll split the sale with you 50/50ths. I about exploded at split the sale 50/50ths. The house was fully mine, per the will. They had zero right to split anything. And even if they were going to pull this scheme, an even split was laughable considering the house is worth far more than $30,000, which is what Grandma intended me to have, plus the house. They were essentially stealing half my inheritance outright, if not more, depending on what shady value they decided was fair. I told Melanie I was getting a lawyer and that she and our parents had better stop whatever they were doing immediately. She started crying that I was tearing the family apart over nothing and how I could do this to them. I hung up on her mid-weep. My next steps. I left a detailed message and email for Grandma's estate attorney, who's a family friend and had handled the will, explaining what I discovered and that I intend to fight it. I haven't heard back yet because it's the weekend, but I'm sure come Monday I'll have a meeting set. I also texted my aunt, Dad's sister. Everything. She is livid and promised to back me up however she can. She's already brainstorming which of Grandma's friends might be witnesses to her intent, etc. Emotionally, I feel like I have to check my pulse every few minutes because I'm just vibrating with anger. They not only stole from me, they did it by stomping on the last wish of a woman they supposedly loved and who tried to help me. It's so low, I struggle to wrap my mind around it. And of course, in their minds, I'm the selfish one for not handing over my inheritance to accommodate Melanie's needs. I haven't spoken to my parents yet. They still haven't directly contacted me since I discovered the listing, only a terse text from Mom. Call us when you're ready to be reasonable. Are you kidding me? I'm just not replying until I talk to the lawyer and get my ducks in a row. I'm posting this for a couple reasons. To vent, thanks for reading this far, and to ask for any advice from those who might have dealt with similar family betrayal or inheritance hijinks. I never thought I'd have to basically battle my own family in court, but here we are. I also want an outside perspective. I'm not crazy for feeling this is a heinous betrayal, right? It's not about the money or the house per se, it's about the principle and respecting Grandma's explicit wishes, okay? And it is a bit about the money/house because, hey, that's my future stability they're messing with. I am prepared to go nuclear on this to get lawyers involved, to drag them publicly if I have to. This feels like the culmination of a lifetime of them putting my sister first, and I'm done rolling over. But a small part of me dreads, the permanent family rift this will cause. How do you ever come back from something like this? I suspect I'll be going no contact once this is resolved, because how could I ever trust them again? Anyway, thanks for listening. I'll update once I've made some legal moves. Wish me luck. I have a feeling this is about to get even uglier. Update 1. It's been 2 weeks of pure chaos, but I can finally say that my grandmother's wishes will be honored, though getting here nearly broke what little remained of our family relationships. Buckle up, because a lot has happened. First off, I lawyered up immediately. The Monday after my initial post, I had a meeting with Grandma's estate attorney, Mr. L. He was already aware something was amiss. Apparently, the buyer's agent had reached out to him for some estate documents, which tipped him off that a sale was underway. When I confirmed that no, I did not consent to selling the house, he shook his head in disgust. Legally, as executors, my parents have a fiduciary duty to act in accordance with the will and the best interest of the beneficiaries, me. Mr. L assured me they had no authority to just decide to transfer the house to Melanie or sell it off and split proceeds unless I agreed, which I obviously did not. They're in very shaky legal ground, he said, which was a huge relief to hear. Mr. L immediately fired off a cease and desist letter to the realtor and my parents, stating that the house was erroneously listed and any sale process needed to stop. He also scheduled an emergency hearing through the probate court to get an injunction preventing the sale and possibly to have my parents removed as executors for breaching their duty. Let me tell you, when my parents received those legal notices, the phone calls came flooding in. I didn't answer. Any communication could go through my lawyer now. However, I did get an email from their attorney. Yep, they quickly lawyered up too. The email was full of flowery language about a misunderstanding and a proposal to resolve the dispute amicably. The gist of their audacious proposal, they wanted me to agree to sell the house and then split the proceeds 50-50 between Melanie and me, effectively giving her half the value of the house. They painted it like they were being oh so generous, claiming this was to avoid drawn-out legal battles and preserve family harmony. Because now they care about harmony, they also conveniently included that this way I'd get the cash value of the house without the burden of managing a property. I nearly burst a blood vessel reading that. It was exactly what I suspected. They'd try-frame their theft as some kind of favor to me. Mr. L, after reading it, said something along the lines of, well, they just made my job easier by essentially admitting and writing their plan to deprive you of the house. He drafted a reply rejecting their proposal, reiterating that I intend to keep the house as willed to me, and noting that we'd be moving forward with legal action. The probate hearing for the injunction was 3 days later. Imagine my surprise when not only my parents showed up, but Melanie did too, sitting in the audience. She shot me a venomous look as if I had wronged her. My aunt, Dad's sister, was also there for support. The judge was thankfully pretty no-nonsense. My parents' lawyer tried to argue that there was confusion about Grandma's intent and that, in the interest of fairness, they thought converting assets to cash and dividing them was better for all parties. The judge wasn't having it. He pointed out that an executor's duty is to the will's directives and the beneficiary, not their own sense of fairness. He asked pointedly, did the beneficiary agree to your plan? My parents' lawyer had to admit I did not. The judge then granted the preliminary injunction to halt any sale of the property and strongly cautioned my parents that attempting to further interfere with the estate could result in them being removed as executors and worse, implication of legal repercussions for breach of duty. So legally, for now, the house was safe. But emotionally, Thanksgiving dinner came and went. Needless to say, we did not gather as a family. My parents sent me an icy formal email informing me that I was no longer welcome at their home for the holidays until this frivolous legal matter is resolved. Fine by me. I spent Thanksgiving with my aunt's family, which was actually really nice, if a bit sad because it drove home how messed up things are with my folks. During this time, Melanie actually had the nerve to send me a couple of texts. The first was a guilt-trippy, hope you're happy. We can't even have Thanksgiving as a family. I really never thought you'd turn on us like this. I didn't respond. The second came after the hearing. You might think you won, but you're just hurting everyone. Was the house really worth it? I had to put the phone down. I was so angry. I wanted to respond that I wasn't the one hurting everyone, but I knew it was pointless. She doesn't see it or doesn't want to. A few days after the hearing, my parents, through their lawyer, finally caved. I suspect their lawyer told them they'd lose any further court fight, and they likely realized continuing would destroy their reputation in our community and extended family. Word was already getting around that they tried to swindle their son. Their lawyer sent a curt message basically saying, our clients will proceed to distribute the estate per the will. Please let us know a convenient time to transfer the property title to my name. Just like that, they folded. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing, just doing what they were legally compelled to do. But I'll take it. Within the next week, the house deed was transferred into my name and the estate accounts, including my $30,000 and Melanie's $30,000, were settled. I officially own my grandma's house now, free and clear. The first thing I did after getting the keys was go over there, just by myself, and sit in Grandma's old rocking chair. I cried a bit, not gonna lie. Partly from relief, partly from wishing she was still here and none of this had ever happened. I felt like I finally exhaled the breath I'd been holding since she died. I silently thanked her and promised to take care of the place. Now the fallout. My parents and Melanie are furious with me, of course. In their eyes, I'm sure I'm the villain who caused drama and tore the family apart over money. The extended family is divided. Some were fed some BS story by my mom, something like I misunderstood what was happening and overreacted, which I've since corrected by privately explaining the truth. A few are appalled at my parents. Some are doing the stay out of it / don't take sides thing. Ugh. And a couple actually think I should have just compromised to keep the peace. Double ugh. But thankfully my aunt and a few cousins have been staunchly in my corner, calling my parents out and supporting me. As for my relationship with my parents and sister, well, it's essentially destroyed, at least for now. After it was clear they had to hand over the house, my mother sent me one single text. House is transferred. We will no longer be discussing it. Despite what you think, we love you. Hope you come to your senses soon. We're here when you're ready. That felt more like a PR statement than anything. I haven't replied. My father hasn't contacted me at all. He's always been conflict avoidant, and I think he's just hoping this will all blow over. Melanie, meanwhile, sent a doozy of an email that vacillated between anger and a warped sort of pleading. Highlights included calling me ungrateful, accusing me of taking a house from your own nephew's future, as if a 2-year-old needs a house, saying I wouldn't have needed Grandma's help if I'd just been as successful as her. Ouch. And also not true, I'm doing fine. Thank you. And how she hopes I enjoy Christmas alone in your house, because you've made sure you're not welcome in ours. It was a lot. I haven't replied to that either. I forwarded it to my aunt, who said it made her want to wring Melanie's neck and that I should ignore it for now. Speaking of Christmas, I'll be spending it with my girlfriend's family. Oh yeah, amidst this drama, I realized I hadn't even mentioned I have a girlfriend of 6 months who thankfully is amazing and has been so supportive through all this. My parents haven't invited me to anything, shocker, though I did get a generic Merry Christmas text from Dad which I left unread. It's awkward, sad, and unnecessary that it's come to this, but I don't see how I can be around them right now. Not after seeing how far they'd go to put Melanie first. Even after death, they tried to give her my inheritance. Emotionally, I'm not dealing. On one hand, I feel vindicated that I stood up for myself and honored Grandma's wishes. On the other, I'm grieving the loss of the illusion of family I had. Because the truth is, the dynamic was always screwed up, but I kept a ragged scrap of hope that one day my parents might see me as equal to my sister. That hope is pretty much gone. It hurts to accept that, but it's also freeing in a way. I have an appointment with a therapist after the holidays to start working through this properly. Anger still hits me in waves, especially when I think about the self-righteous attitude they all had. But I also feel lighter knowing I don't have to play along anymore. I'm done being the family doormat. As for the house, ironically, I don't even know if I'll keep living in this area long term. I might rent it out or something if I move for work someday. But knowing it's mine, that I have this financial security, is reassuring. And if I do nothing else with it, at least I prevented my parents from using it to further spoil my sister. Grandma wanted it to benefit me, and by God it finally will. I'm not sure what the future holds for my relationship with my family. Maybe after some time passes and feelings cool, we'll talk. But I know if that day comes, it'll have to start with them acknowledging how horribly they acted. And given their track record, I won't hold my breath. For now, I'm focusing on the family I do have: my aunt, my cousins, my friends, my girlfriend, all the people who have shown me that family can be more than just blood. This whole ordeal, as painful as it's been, taught me that I can stand up for myself and that I deserve to stand up for myself. I'm proud and deeply grateful to Grandma that I didn't just roll over this time. No more taking the scraps and saying thank you. So that's where it stands. Not exactly a happy ending with rainbows and reconciliation, but a just one. I got what was rightfully mine, and I've extricated myself from their attempts to keep me less than. Maybe one day they'll realize what they did and genuinely try to make amends, but I'm not counting on it. In the meantime, I'm going to live my life on my terms.